We are getting really, really close to the NFL season. Week 1 is right around the corner, and your fantasy football drafts mostly are in the books. But for those of you that still have drafts coming up in the next week or so, I'm going to get you ready by unveiling my top 50 non-PPR fantasy football rankings to get you ready for your fantasy drafts. And if you've already had drafts, if you're looking to maybe make a trade, I'm going to tell you who you should go after, maybe who you should avoid. And you will see, by the way, that they are ranked. But first, be sure to like this video, share this video on social media, and subscribe to this channel. If you have any fantasy football questions or comments, put them in the comment section, and I will answer them on the next video. We do have one comment from CRC Sportsman from the Earl Thomas video, who says that he believes this will help the Steelers out, but he still thinks Baltimore wins the division. Thank you for the comment, CRC Sportsman. And it's going to be a neck-and-neck race this year. I really believe it's going to come right down to the end of the season. It's going to be a really interesting division to watch. Before we get into the rankings, we do have a bit of breaking news that's broken in the past few hours, at least since when this video was being recorded. Yannick Ngakoue has been traded to the Minnesota Vikings for a second and conditional 5th-round pick that I believe Adam Schefter said could go up to as high as a 3rd-round pick. So, of course, the Jaguars not getting quite exactly what they wanted from Yannick for Yannick Ngakoue, but this does make Minnesota's defensive line really good again. So I really do like what Minnesota was able to pull off in this trade. That, of course, they lose Everson Griffin, so this is a nice move for the Minnesota Vikings. Before we get into today, of course, there's a lot going on. Of course, thoughts and prayers for all of you in the South with Hurricane Laura going through. Of course, hope that all of you guys are safe down there. I also wanted to mention the churches in California. And nobody's really talking about this, but I believe somebody needs to. Persecution, we think of it in other countries, but it's happening here. And, people say, COVID's an excuse. Well, COVID's not an excuse. Churches in California are being shut down by orders that Gavin Newsom and other people are making. And I think this needs to be recognized. So I wanted to mention that. I hope that you all will pray and stuff that God will work in those situations. Very, very rough situations going there. Churches are being fined. A lot of money per service. It's getting really bad, so we need to pray that they will win. I mean, that is unconstitutional. Churches have a constitutional right, and more importantly, we as Christians, those of us that are saved, we are commanded to meet in church by God. We're commanded by God. It's better to serve God rather than man. So it's better to obey God. So, and there are churches in California that are doing just that, and are facing some consequences for that. So we need to pray for them. And if you're out here today, and I don't usually mention this on the football videos, but if you're out here today and you don't know Christ as your Savior, I do have a video that I'll put up here. You can click on the little, I don't know what side of the screen it'll be, but should be able to click on it up here. Or you can just go to my channel if you can't find the tag, and it shows you from the Bible how you can know for sure you're going to heaven. I hope you all will check that out. But to my top 50 fantasy football rankings, it is time to get into this. Dak Prescott. Actually, no. I'm going to start off at number 50 because I made a mistake in my rankings. I put Kenyan Drake in there twice, so I had to change this. I'm going to put Russell Wilson at number 50 and Dak Prescott at 49. We're going to go through this kind of quickly, but I have Russell Wilson at number 50 in my rankings. The offensive line's still bad, but Russell Wilson is a consistent producer, usually stays healthy, so I believe he's a safe pick. Number 49, I have Dak Prescott. And we've talked a lot about the Cowboys on the show. Mike McCarthy runs a pass-happy offense. I believe Kellen Moore will still be calling the plays, but they drafted CeeDee Lamb in the 1st round to go along with Michael Gallup, who many people think can be a number 1 wide receiver. And we already know what Amari Cooper is. This should be one of the most prolific passing offenses in the entire league, and this should help Dak Prescott. The offensive line is still mostly together. Of course, Travis Frederick was lost to retirement, but for the most part, this should still be a really good defense, a really good pass offense, and a really good option in fantasy football. I've been down on Dak Prescott the past couple years in fantasy. This is the first year that I'm actually fairly high on him. He is my number 4 fantasy quarterback. Number 48, I have Marquise Brown, and I've warmed up on Brown. I was slow on him at the beginning of the draft process. I've kind of warmed up on him. Lamar Jackson's really gotten in sync with this guy. Of course, Lamar Jackson does have a big arm. Marquise Brown is a speed demon who can win deep. I know accuracy is a little bit of an issue, but that didn't seem to stop them when they were both healthy last year. And I expect him to get maybe even a little bit bigger target share than what he had last year. I have Will Fuller coming in at 47, and this is higher than what you'll see pretty much anywhere else. But my point is, when he is healthy, he's going to ball out. And we saw DeAndre Hopkins leave for Arizona, who we'll get into later in the video. And I believe Will Fuller is going to be the number one receiver there right now. I know Brandon Cooks they brought in, Randall Cobb, you have Kenny still there. They have a lot of speed, deep threats down the field. And Kiki QT, can't discount him out of the slot. But I still believe Will Fuller is going to be the number one receiver. Of course, health is the concern, so I understand if you want to avoid him. But even if he can stay healthy for 10 games, I think it could honestly be worth a 7th or 8th round pick where you're getting him. But it sounds like he's healthier than what he's been the past few years. So that's why I'm so high on Will Fuller. I believe he is their number one wide receiver now. And if he can stay healthy, man, he could be a wide receiver one for you, and we've known that for a long time. He balls out when healthy, but health is always a big concern with him. Number 46, I have Raheem Mostert. Mostert, of course, was tempting to hold out. They restructured his contract, so it doesn't sound like he's holding out. But there have been a lot of injury concerns with the entire backfield. Tevin Coleman is still there. Jerick McKinnon, they paid a lot of money several years ago to come in and have a big role in that offense. So I expect that Kyle Shanahan to try to get him involved. Kyle Shanahan's also talked up Jeff Wilson. So he's not going to be a workhorse back, Raheem Mostert, but I believe he will be the number one back after his late season emergence last year. I have Leonard Fournette coming in at 45, and this is a bit low for Fournette. I understand that, but the Jaguars are going to be losing. If you saw my AFC South Division preview video, I have them going 1-15, so they're going to be losing a lot. They're going to be behind a lot, which means they can't run a lot. I know that they want to get him more involved in the passing game, but they have Raquel Armstead. They have other pass-catching running backs, and there's talks that they may trade him at the trade deadline, so that could help or hurt Fournette, but I am going to avoid Leonard Fournette in fantasy this year. DeAndre Swift, I have coming in at 44. Swift, he's battling an injury right now, so Kerryon Johnson's getting more time with the number one backs. So, maybe Kerryon starts off the year as the number one back. I'm not sure. But before the nagging injury that Swift has had this past week or so, he was the more explosive running back, and he was really balling out in Detroit. So I think he will be the number one running back. Of course, Kerryon will still get his snaps, but I think Swift will be more heavily involved in the passing game, and we've seen what Darrell Bevel can do with explosive running backs in the past. Mike Evans, I have coming at 43 now. This is another big surprise in my rankings, but we've talked about Mike Evans a lot. I beat on Evans a lot, not because I don't think he's a good receiver. I like him better than Chris Godwin. I think he's an excellent receiver, maybe top 5 in the league. But his size-speed combination makes him good downfield and good in the red zone. That's not where Tom Brady succeeds, okay? We know Tom Brady doesn't have a good arm. He never had a good arm. He never will have a strong arm. He's not going to be throwing the ball downfield. He's not going to be chucking it 40 yards down the field. I think that Chris Godwin, Tyler Johnson, and maybe even Gronk will get more looks from Tom Brady because of that. But not because Mike Evans is a bad receiver, but I'm going to avoid him this year because it is so boom or bust. I think the bust potential is higher than most receivers this year. Kyler Murray is one quarterback I am okay with taking in the middle rounds. Usually I either take Mahomes early or I wait until the end of the draft and take a couple sleepers. That's just how I usually work my quarterbacks. But Kyler Murray is a guy I have taken in a couple of my leagues because I believe he does bring really good value. He brings top 2, really top. This is hard because if Mahomes stays healthy, more than likely, it's really hard to top Mahomes and even Lamar Jackson. But Kyler Murray is going to be an excellent quarterback, I believe, this year. They brought in Josh Jones. They re-signed DJ Humphries at left tackle. The tackles should be better. Hopefully the offensive line will be improved. And, of course, they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. They have a lot of weapons in that offense. Hakeem Butler, we'll see what he does. They have Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella. They have a lot of weapons there. Kyler Murray should be able to succeed in this offense after having a QB7. I believe he finished QB7 last year. At 41, I had to fix the numbers in here again, my bad. I have Odell Beckham. I'm not taking him super high this year. I didn't draft him in any of my leagues that I'm in, simply because I can never trust him to be consistent. Either he's injured or, he has one game where he scores 25 points, then he has 2 games in a row where he gets you 4. I just don't like that inconsistency. So I'm not a huge fan on Odell. If you already have a good receiver or 2, and Odell starts to fall, maybe you can afford to take him, but I don't trust him enough to take him with, my 3rd or 4th round pick. Maybe 5th round isn't terrible value, but any higher than that, I'd have to avoid. Allen Robinson, I have at 41. I'm a big fan of Anthony Miller from an actual player standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint, Nick Foles coming at quarterback, maybe this will help Allen Robinson. Of course, he's a couple years removed from the ACL injury, and we know that Allen Robinson can be an explosive receiver. I have David Johnson coming in at 13.9. Again, if I say the wrong number, I apologize because I wrote them down and all the numbers are one off because I put Kenyan Drake 2 times in my rankings. That is my bad. So if I say the wrong number, I apologize. I'm going to try to put the rankings on the bottom of the screen for you guys so you guys can see it scroll through. But I have David Johnson coming in at 39, and it was a horrible deal. We all know Bill O'Brien made a stupid deal. But I do think that David Johnson, they're going to try to use. If he can stay healthy, he's going to have a big role in that offense because obviously Bill O'Brien saw enough to get rid of DeAndre Hopkins in order to get him. So we'll see what happens there. I have Aaron Jones at 39 now. This is a bit surprised because you see him, as 20 spots higher in most rankings. But he's not going to get the 19 touchdowns from last year. They drafted A.J. Dillon. They still have Jamal Williams, who I like as a running back, but it really hurts from a fantasy perspective because you don't know what their roles are going to be. I still trust Aaron Jones to be the number 1 running back, and they want to pound the ball a lot. But I'm just not a huge fan of the Packers as a whole this year. I have them going 9-7. You already knew that if you watched my NFC North Division preview. I just don't know what to think of this offense. They should have drafted a receiver. I just don't know what to think anymore of the Packers. It's really tough to figure them out right now. I have Terry McLaurin coming in at 37. Actually, I had Aaron Jones at 38. That was my bad. David Johnson at 39. Terry McLaurin at 37. And DJ Chark at 36. So both of these guys, they're on teams that are terrible, arguably the 2 worst in the league, but they're both with quarterbacks who have good rapport with them. They both have good rapport. Of course, Gardner Minshew, that was when DJ Chark really started to click. That was when he started to click. That was when Gardner Minshew came in as a starting quarterback. He didn't do a whole lot with Nick Foles. And of course, we know that Dwayne Haskins was a former teammate of Terry McLaurin in college. So they already have a rapport working there. 35, I have Calvin Ridley, and 34, Todd Gurley. So we have 2 Falcons here. I mentioned that I think Calvin Ridley could outscore Julio Jones in non-PPR fantasy this year, simply because Julio, he's not going to get those reception points that a lot of you guys really like, and he's not going to get you touchdowns, so it all comes down to the yards. Whereas Calvin Ridley is more apt to get touchdowns, and he's gotten a bigger role each and every year in this offense. And Matt Ryan is seemed to get more and more comfortable and trusted him more and more, and I think his role will even go up more now that Austin Hooper is gone. We'll see what role Hayden Hurst has. Matt Ryan seems to like him. But then Todd Gurley at 34... Todd Gurley, I don't know, because I've been down on him the past couple years. I've had him as a bust potential the past couple years. And, of course, his knee injury, arthritis in the knee. I didn't draft him in any of my leagues, but it wasn't because I wasn't willing to. It was because he went too high for me. I would take him at the end of the 4th round if that was how the board fell. Maybe middle 4th, but I just don't know. I know that he's going to have a big... there's nobody really competing with him for touches in the backfield. But there's so many inconsistencies with Gurley. I don't know what's going to happen with his knee. We just don't see a whole bunch of running backs with arthritis problems. So we'll see what happens. They're going to be passing a lot. He'll be heavily involved in the passing game. So he could probably be a low-end running back 1 at best. That's what I see. But, some people think he could be higher than that. But I think this is a modest place to put Todd Gurley. Not too high, not too low. I have Le'Veon Bell coming in at number 33. And Bell, I've been all over the place. At first, I was high on him because, Adam Gase says, he can be, the workhorse back. They revamped their offensive line. Mekhi Becton. I believe they brought in Connor McGovern at guard. They brought in George Fant. This offensive line should be a lot better than last year. But then they have Frank Gore, who Adam Gase has seemed to like. So maybe he gets carries. And then they tell Miami, hey, we know you're going to release Kalen Ballage, but hey, let us give you a late round pick. Even though nobody's going to pick him up, we could pick him up for free. Let's just give you a late round pick and give him to us. So now they have Kalen Ballage. So that indicates to me that they're going to use him in some role. So I don't know what to think about Le'Veon Bell. There's been so much turmoil going on with the Jets and Bell and his relationship with Adam Gase. So I don't know. Bell is boomer bust to me at 33. I have a chance to get him in a trade. But we have to move on. We are getting a little bit short on time. I have A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf at 32 and 31. Of course, they were former teammates at Ole Miss. A.J. Brown going to be the number one receiver in that offense. He could be a wide receiver one for you for sure. As long as nothing changes. Ryan Tannehill really liked him last year. And Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith are the only other two that will really even compete for targets. I like Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis. He's going to be irrelevant in fantasy for the most part. DK Metcalf, I do think will be the number one wide receiver for the Seahawks. You notice that I have Tyler Lockett not in my rankings. And that's because I think DK Metcalf is going to emerge as the number one wide receiver. He may not be as efficient as Lockett, but his target share will be bigger. And I truly think that he could be one of the best receivers in the league after this year. Mark Andrews, I have coming in at number 30. He is my number 3 tight end. As you see, Zach Ertz is not in my top 50 either. Mark Andrews is a guy that, his target share is still going to be big. Plus, Hayden Hurst is gone, so that only helps him. The only question is, can he stay healthy? Of course, we can't really predict that. But I do like Mark Andrews. I liked him last year. He really kept several of my teams alive last year that were, for the most part, garbage. Because I was able to grab him in the 16th round in a lot of my drafts last year. So I was really happy with Mark Andrews last year. I think he'll have another good year this year. Cooper Kupp I have at 29. That's a little bit higher than what I expected to put him, but he's still going to have a decent-sized... he's going to have actually a bigger target share because Brandon Cooks is gone, but it'll be in the outside instead of the slot, and they'll use more Everett and Higbee, play more 12 personnel. Lamar Jackson at 28, I wouldn't take him in the first 2 rounds. And we've talked about Lamar Jackson a lot, so I'm not even going to get into him because we're short on time. But still, he's still my QB2 in fantasy football. Can't go wrong with him in the 3rd round. Jonathan Taylor. Marlon Mack is going to probably get more of the carries at the start of the year, but if Jonathan Taylor can ever catch some steam, I don't know if he'll ever look back, because with this offensive line and Jonathan Taylor's pure running ability, it's going to be hard for Marlon Mack to get back on the field once Taylor sees it. So I expect Jonathan Taylor to have a nice year, but once we hit, December. Julio Jones, 27. This is kind of another surprise, but we talked about him already. Not going to get into him more. But that's where I put him at, 26. Again, I'm getting confused by these numbers. Apologies about that. Juju Smith-Schuster at 25. So I had Julio at 26. Juju at 25. I believe that with the Ben Roethlisberger coming back, that does help the entire offense. Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, they could all be relevant with Ben Roethlisberger coming back. Should be a really explosive offense. Austin Ekeler, I do like Ekeler from the perspective that he's going to get a lot of targets and touches, but they're going to be behind a lot, and I'm just not a big fan of the Chargers as a whole. You notice that Keenan Allen's not in my top 50. So I'm a little bit lower on Austin Ekeler. 3rd round's okay, but maybe late 2nd, but that'd be the highest I'd even consider going. Travis Kelce is my number 2 tight end. You can't go wrong at that, but I have him coming in at 23. Again, Ekeler 24, my bad. Then I have Kelce at 23. You can't go wrong with either Kelce or Kittle, but I put Kittle ahead of Kelce just because there's fewer mouths to feed in that offense, but we know Mahomes can feed all of the mouths in Kansas City, so you can't go wrong with Travis Kelce. Chris Godwin at 22, Adam Thielen at 21, and DJ Moore at 20. We saw what Joe Brady did with the LSU wide receivers last year. With Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase made them from mad receivers into really good, some of the best receivers in the country. I think he'll do the same thing with DJ Moore. Adam Thielen, he's going to have a huge target share with Stephon Diggs gone, and assuming he stays healthy. Last year was the first year he really had a problem staying healthy. George Kittle I have at 19. DeAndre Hopkins at 18. And this is a little bit lower than some other rankings you see just because there's so much unknown with a new quarterback, shortened off season. We've gotten into that a lot already. But he's boom or bust, but I believe he'll, maybe not bust, but I don't know what his ceiling is. His ceiling is high, but the chances of him reaching it, I'm just not sure what they are in a year like this. Another big surprise, number 17, Derrick Henry. Some people have him in the top 5. I'm not, and these are non-PPR rankings, but I'm just not eyeing him. Dennis Kelly's going to be starting at right tackle, not an excellent run blocker. They lost Jack Conklin. I think that's going to be a huge hit for them, and I'm not sure if they can run the ball near as effectively as they did at the end of last year. Teams will adapt. Kenny Golladay at 16, and I love Kenny Golladay this year. He produced last year as an almost wide receiver 1 with Jeff Driscoll and David Blau for half the year. Okay, so if Matthew Stafford is healthy, I expect a huge year from DJ Moore. I believe he can be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. He's going to become one of the best young wide receivers in the game. Nick Chubb, I have coming in at 15. We'll see. I don't know how many carries Kareem Hunt's going to take away from him, but we saw that he was a dog for the dog pound last year, and the offensive line should be better for the Cleveland Browns. Even though they do have a couple players sitting out, they did add Tristan Wirfs through the draft. Kenyan Drake, I put him in the rankings twice, but I do have him at 14. That was my bad. I have him at 14, and I do like Drake from the perspective that he is, he just really fits this offense. And we talked about Arizona a lot, but with David Johnson leaving, he really fits this offense. Clyde Edwards-Helaire I have at 13. I said third round would be nice, but I figured out I can't really put him that low in the rankings just because of the lack of really good workhorse running backs. But I wouldn't take him in the first round because even if you take him in the first round, he hits his value. That's as high as he's going to go. You need something more proven with your number 1 pick, especially in a year like this. I have Patrick Mahomes coming in at number 12. I'm really high on him. You know me and Mahomes. I have Miles Sanders at 11. I moved Joe Mixon up to number 10 because Miles Sanders keeps losing his offensive line. Half his offensive line is injured. So I have Joe Mixon at 10. Dalvin Cook at 9. Josh Jacobs at 8. And then the big countdown, number 7, Ezekiel Elliott. Number 6, Tyreek Hill. Number 5, Davante Adams. Number 4, Michael Thomas. Number 3, Alvin Kamara. Number 2, Saquon Barkley. And number 1, Christian McCaffrey. Now you probably need to go back and rewatch the entire video at probably 25% speed. But that is going to do it for today. I'm Andrew Wilbar. Be sure to like this video, share this video on social media, and subscribe to this channel. Sorry we had to do that really quickly at the end because we ran out of time. But that is going to do it for today. Thank you all for watching. I hope these help you in your drafts. If you have any fancy questions or comments, put them in the comment section, and I will answer them on the next video. And we're nearing week 1 of the season. Looking forward to it. We'll see you soon.